Good to go.
Cool. That's live.
We're about to be.
Cool. Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday, May 19th. Today we have a special episode. It's going to be focused all around marketing and how marketing has been impacted through COVID. We have a special guest with us, not John. John's from our marketing team. But we have a special guest, one of our customers, Frog and Toad, a local Rhode Island business retail company. We'll learn a little bit more about them. We decided to bring them on today because they have a quite unique approach to marketing, both their strategy, their mindset, how they thought about things, how they pivoted through COVID. I think it'll be a fun, exciting story, and we're excited to have them on. So that's today's topic. Let's bring Asher in.
Cool.
Let's see. Asher, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we are live. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, we're excited to have you on. I think that what I was just saying is we're excited to have you on because you are both a unique perspective on marketing and how you think about it, but also you've done a tremendous job, and you and your team have done a tremendous job in over the past 14 months now, really pivoting with COVID. I think COVID, one thing, not to kind of kick it off here in this way, but COVID has kind of forced a lot of retail businesses specifically to change how they do things, right? So before getting too deep into that, do you mind giving us kind of a little bit background on yourself and the team and kind of Frog and Toad and what you guys are all about?
Sure. So at our core, we are a brick and mortar retail storefront with 2 locations. We opened 20 years ago for the sole reason that both my wife and I didn't like our day jobs. So we felt like we were young enough to take a chance, and we didn't have a mortgage or kids. So we just did. And 20 years goes by really quickly. In that time, now we make our own greeting cards and sell them to other stores around the country. We've got our own print shop where we, print T-shirts and tote bags for other clients. And I think we've just done our best to change and grow, just to stay, viable in what's a pretty volatile landscape out there on Main Street for retailers.
And what was can you tell us a little bit more about what was the mindset when going in and creating Frog and Toad? What type at inception, not right now, but what type of products were you looking to sell? What did that product line look like then?
It's so interesting to think back to then. I will say this, at our core, we wanted to remain flexible, just to have the maximum ability to change what it was that we were curating, which is why we settled right out of the gate on a name for our business that was pretty arbitrary and vague, because we felt like, okay, well, maybe in a couple of years, we'll just want to sell jewelry if that's what the market wants. So I think, from the onset, we wanted to be somewhat amalgamous so that we could change over time. But I will say that when we first opened, we were almost more of a furniture store. We had a lot of imported Chinese cabinets and tables, parasols and lighting. And nobody would even recognize the store back then if they're accustomed to coming in now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I was with that because you have a very, obviously, as you said, a very different product line now. And I want to get into your product line now and how that works, but what was your thought process of marketing up front? With furniture, with all these different items, did you have a marketing strategy? And granted, we were 20 years ago, so things looked a lot different.
Yeah.
And what you were able to do, but how did you think about marketing back then?
Well, in many ways, similarly as I do now, it's just that the tools are different now, obviously. But as you're asking this question, I'm thinking about some of the direct mail campaigns that we had in our early years. which featured full illustrations of my wife with like really ridiculous face expressions on, holding a sign that says "Crazy Aaron's 2-day sale. We will not be undersold." Some like really silly stuff. And I think that was probably like the first inkling that we were unconventional in our marketing approach. And also, human centered. I think that to a large degree, we realized at the beginning that, we were the very definition of a mom and pop business. And so I think a lot of our marketing focused on who we were as people, both that related to our community and to our customers, like with over-the-counter conversation. I think a lot of what marketed our business at the beginning was that folks knew us, and that, when folks shop with us, they were checking out at the counter with the owner of the store, and what does that mean, for that retail experience. It's different than shopping at Target, where it's a cashier who's like you or me in every other way, except they don't actually manage and run that business, right?
Mm-hmm. And it feels more personal, right? And I feel like that's an approach that you've always tried to portray.
I think so. Yeah.
It's the local aspect of it. And so now walk us a little bit through history. You mentioned that you have the print shop and a couple other things going on throughout history. So you started in furniture and a couple random other items. How did that shift? What was the cause of that shift? Was it something in the market? Was it just, hey, I want to sell different items? Like what caused you to shift your product line?
I think just like intuitively knowing that we had to do that to stay like viable. And then also I can't overstate that piece about being a shopkeep working at their counter. I mean, you're able to identify and respond to what people's interests and purchasing habits are. Like you hear firsthand on a daily basis, like, do you guys stock this? Do you have that? And I think that like how we've evolved over time, in part, was responding to that market interest. I won't say demand, but that market interest. And then I think beyond that, I realized that creating our own original creative content to stock and sell was critical to our longevity, to being able to brand ourselves as a unique place where you could only get that thing here. I mean, I go to other boutiques that are similar in scale to mine around the country, and it is kind of messed up how you go into like a store and you see the same product that's, back there in a boutique in Providence or Portland, Maine. And you start to see this like common thread through all these businesses. Not that that's a negative, but it always bothered me. It always bothered me when I saw that, because it felt it felt personal. It felt like I wasn't doing my best. It felt like I was being like all the other guys. And I think that, I don't know, I think that it's just like in my DNA that I don't want to be that. I want to be in some way set apart.
It wasn't the traditional gift shop at an airport, if you will.
Correct.
And I guess with that, it's an interesting point, because with that, I feel like you probably have on one side of the equation, you have a leg up, right? Because you have a unique product offering, right? But on the flip side of that, for better or for worse, it also makes it a little bit more challenging to market those products, right? Because it is a unique product. It's not the same product that is in Target, right? It is a little bit harder. How do you think about, with that being said, with that in the back of your mind, how do you think about your marketing strategy? Like if you were to, how do you think about marketing? I know this is a vague question, but is there like a framework that you think about marketing through? How do you think about getting in front of consumers?
I boil it down to, I guess, two different key points. The first one is I really hate marketing. I think that it has compromise the integrity of our society. I can't get on my phone without being marketed to or sold something. I can't drive on the street without seeing advertising. I can't read my paper without reading an article that's based on a press release. I went to CNN and checked out their homepage yesterday, and I think probably like 10 articles above the fold, the virtual fold, were clearly like a marketing article, that was just placed there by an ad exec, basically. So I just hate it. I don't like being sold stuff. I want to like live my life and just kind of be happy, independent of that. And I feel like we have a constant barrage coming at us, especially with social media now, where I don't know. I just fear that one day I'm gonna go to sleep and wake up and feel like my whole life went by and all I was a sales target. So I hate that. I hate marketing. But I also have taken the approach that I'm the guy that I'm marketing to. So I guess that's driven me to have a little bit more of a human-centered approach to it, to focus on people, to tell people stories, to be humanly funny, to be different and weird, because in a way we all are different and weird. So I think that core hatred that I have for the industry of marketing has led me to maybe look at different approaches that work better for me and for my customer. The other thing too, I think, is for a business of my scale, it kind of all happens under the same roof, right? So in whatever capacity, I have a hand in the concept and creation of many of the things that we sell. And that lends itself to like a genuine, honest belief and love for what I am effectively marketing to people. And if you're in marketing and you don't have that in your job, that's okay. That's just the reality of a lot of jobs. But I feel lucky that I have that. And I think for anybody that's in that industry, aspire to be able to market something that you actually really believe in. And I think that therein lies the biggest difference in being successful and in being happy.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I also feel like between those lines is also, there's a sense of authenticity, right? In your marketing, right? Is because with that mindset of I'm marketing to the same person who I am, right? It's like, I hate marketing, right? I hate people that market to me. And so knowing that, I'm going to approach things differently, right? And there's a couple examples with Frog and Toad of just the pure authenticity behind your marketing strategy. Whether it's unintentional, right? That seemed to be a trend with our own marketing with GrowthLab, to be honest, is like, it's been a very unintentional journey. While it's been like somewhat intentional, right? I can't take credit for everything, right? And so one example I think that we kind of bring up often is you guys put out a sign on the sidewalk once. I think it was around Christmas time, right? 2 years ago, something like that, right? And it was John Travolta gift wrapping by John Travolta inside, right? And I'm sure you guys just did that because you thought it was funny, right? Funny, and probably like gets people to look at it and possibly come in, right? With no concept of actually hiring John Travolta to be in the store, right? And you got some backlash over that, and that's a strong word, maybe not the right thing, but you guys got a 1-star review on Facebook, however you want to review that, right? Which may in of itself be better marketing for you guys. But I think it goes back to that theme of like authenticity, right? You guys thought it was funny, you guys enjoyed it, and you just did it, right? It wasn't about how am I going to calculate the ROI on this sign and bring it out there, right? It was about, hey, I think this is funny. I think that my consumers will identify and align with it. Let's do it, right?
I also think it's so important because you're not marketing to the people who wouldn't think that was funny. You know who your customer is, and that sign is for your customer.
Yeah, and I think also like it's a little bit of to your point, it's like a firewall in a sense, right? Like it's I'm saying this thing, and yeah, if you get that, you're our people. The customer is not always right.
It's preventing.
It is, exactly. So when we get that 1-star review, Korey, to your point, yeah, like nobody wants to get that, but at the same time, like what that 1-star review and that reviewer who is just genuinely so disappointed that the real John Travolta wasn't in our 800 square foot boutique actually gift wrapping his present. The fact that that person was like saddened and upset by that provided myself and our staff so much joy, so much team building in what is always a very rigorous holiday season, that even if there weren't any sort of residual marketing quotient to it, which there was, the reward was right there in itself. Just we're all human beings, and some of us miss a joke, and maybe that's the funniest part of the joke. I don't know.
Well, then you get the aspect where people actually jump on the review and read it and think it's hilarious.
And then come in for that reason. But what you guys did in the aftermath of that, which I think is like a theme as well, is you guys took like screenshots of that 1-star review and you publicized it in certain matters, right? Like you actually leaned into something that many people would stray away from, right? It's not often that people are posting 1-star Google reviews on their social media or publicizing that, right? But you guys have leaned into a lot of your marketing strategy, which I think is fascinating. How about in terms, Asher, like competitors, right? So from a guy that hates marketing, that hates to be marketed to, right? How do you think about marketing and competing against other shops that sell maybe not the same item, right? Because all of your products are unique. How do you think about competitors in this space? And how could a retail shop that looks similar to you think about that? Or do you?
I am going to be really honest, and it's going to sound like braggadocio, but I don't think about competition in those terms, like at all. I don't think it's productive. I think the fact that, there are other people out there with similar business models is motivational to a certain extent. But I think I'm just more inclined to look at it as like inspirational. Like there are other businesses that I would say have a similar model to ours that I take cues from, that I'm inspired by, that I have like respect for. And I think that in varying degrees, it influences approaches that I might try or take. For example, there's a print shop and boutique in Colorado Springs called Ladyfinger's Letterpress. And they've always been like this model of excellence for me because they're in the greeting card industry as well, and because they have a shop. But their messaging is incredibly human centered. It's very much about their journey as people with their family at the forefront and negotiating the challenges that we've all faced over the past year. And for me, that's given me incentive or permission to maybe open up and explore some other ways of communicating with my customer. So short answer is I don't look at competition as like a threat. I look at it as like we're all kind of in this together and figuring it out together. And I think if you're looking at competition as a threat, you might be in the wrong industry. I think it's far better to be more introspective about how one can do better or be more successful, if that makes sense.
Yeah, fascinating. And I'm sure that's maybe another lens to that is it depends how you define a competitor, right? Because I think part of your value proposition is the authenticity, not just like in the marketing strategy, but it's in the products itself, right? They're unique products. And it's not just around, and it does not just come down to the dollar, right? There's more to it behind that. And if it just comes down to the next penny out of it to come in first place, you're going to get sidetracked in some spot, right? So you have to have a motivating factor behind everything.
Yeah, Korey, it's like a long view, I think, too, to your point. You know, like I think if you get too tight on what your daily operations are with how they relate to your commercial landscape, you're missing the big picture and you're not thinking about where you're going to be in people's minds a year from now.
Yeah, fascinating. So I want to kind of shift gears a bit, kind of bringing this back to the lens of COVID over the past 18 months. Can you tell us a little bit? So COVID hit, about 14 months ago, pretty precisely. COVID hits, what goes through your mind? That first week, people start going home. And I know there's a documentary out that I want to give a plug on that kind of incorporates some of your thinking behind this. But for people that are listening in right now, what goes through your mind that first week? People go home, right? It's virtual. You're a retail, mostly in-person shop. You got a lot of foot traffic coming from those streets that you're on. What do you think? Like, what do you think is next steps for Frog and Toad at that point?
I will never forget the day where myself and other merchants from our commercial district here on Hope Street sat down and met with the representative of the city, who was just, I think, sharing what information they did have about the impact of the upcoming or the current pandemic. Even at that time, it was current. And that was when the full weight of the dread set in, because I could glean from this official that this thing was way bigger than anybody had previously thought. I mean, they were talking about setting up food hubs because people are going to be hungry and without food. And so in the city, part of their strategy was to be having like bases where the community could come to get free food. So, I mean, when you're talking in those terms, you're talking apocalyptic, right? So that was like a turning point for me, where that existential dread really just like fell down like a hammer. And I won't lie, I would say it was probably about 2 weeks until I felt any sense of hope after. I was pretty much incapacitated with depression for a solid 2 weeks. And then, I think it's just a human function that you have to, try and work your way through that. And Frog and Toad was just incredibly lucky, where, I think we had the good fortune to hit upon a couple designs over the course of the past year that were so well received by the public that we were able to kind of like fall forward and work our way through, such an unprecedented and confusing time. So I feel fortunate for that. I mean, also I can't overstate enough like how helpful GrowthLab has been for us. I should state that I'm not just a podcast guest, I'm also a client. We realized, Korey, like right away that we obviously weren't going to be that walk-in in-person boutique anymore. We closed for in-person shopping March 16th. And from that point on, it was internet only. And while we had a better platform and position for entering into that new phase, like we had a lot of work to do to make that better likely to succeed. And fortunately, we've got an incredible staff here that, are so invested in this business that everybody just kind of came together and did whatever was necessary to do that, to pivot and become an e-com business exclusively.
What are some of those things that you, like, as you say that, like, what are some of those things that you did, not just moving inventory online and creating that online platform for people to shop, but what are like a few of those things that you did to get people to visit that shop, right? You have a massive surrounding, you have a massive following due to like the local aspect of Frog and Toad, right? You guys have leaned into that, which has been amazing. But besides those people, how did you deem to attract new visitors to your site?
Well, I mean, I think I can't say that it was a strategy per se or just something that happened organically, but over the course of the past year, I certainly saw this like unique position for ourselves in developing partnerships with local nonprofits. And that served, I mean, that came out of, I think, that existential crisis we were all facing. And I think it came out of the social justice movements that we all experienced in varying degrees over the course of the summer of 2020. And just wanting to be able to do more in some way, but also seeing that these types of partnerships and working with community organizations, like doing a design for a t-shirt where the proceeds benefit, fill in the blank organization, that kind of became a model for us. I think we just sort of like realized that it felt good, that we saw the return on that sweat equity investment in it. And I think it probably elevated our profile, certainly on the Rhode Island level, about maybe Frog and Toad isn't just that store on the corner. Maybe there's a core principle here that's runs a little bit deeper than that. So I would point to that first and foremost as being like a strategy, even though it wasn't entirely deliberate, that got us through a really, really challenging year. Beyond that, it's really just been that human aspect of looking at where people were at through that time and trying to tell their stories. I used that social media space to focus on a lot of other businesses that weren't as fortunate as me. The fishmonger that was closed for 2 months, the restaurant that wasn't allowed to do any in-person dining. What was that like for them? Were they hopeful? Were they about to throw the towel in? And I just because we're all connected in this community, I felt like it was important to pay attention to those stories that otherwise maybe weren't being covered. And that felt good too. And that again comes back to that whole piece about like marketing doesn't have to suck. Like you can use your platform and you can use those tools to do it in a way that feels good, and I think that if I learned anything over the past year, it was that you can have real success by being genuine, honest, and good-hearted. And I think that myself and my team here just really wanted to lean into that.
Yeah, I feel like that's one thing that I hope kind of stays true post-COVID is I feel like if there's one benefit coming out of this, like one shining light is that I feel like a lot of small, maybe more so small businesses, like there was truly a community formed, right? Of banding together, helping each other. And I think it was a community that while it was there before, it wasn't really fully connected before, right? And I hope that this stays a theme post-COVID world, and is not just like a quick fix, right? Yeah, I think
I'm so glad you said that. I'm sorry to talk over. That all of those community forums, like they were so inspiring, and they were like just popping up like out of fear and need, but genuine care. And I'm glad you brought that up because I remember seeing that happening in real time and feeling, it's just so excited by that.
Yeah, and I'm curious how that'll be one thing that I would like to like explore kind of forward looking is like, how do we continue to keep that? Because it wasn't just the social aspect of helping one another, right? But there's so much more to it. It's not just about helping the next business, right? But it's about helping some of your products, as you mentioned, like for each sale, it benefits someone else, right? Not just another business, but truly another human being in need, right? And how do we reciprocate that? How do we create a ripple effect with that throughout not just the small business community, but about through larger businesses too, right? So I think that's something that I hope stays true through this.
I agree with you 100%.
So kind of taking a look back, and you kind of touched on it, but taking a look back, is there anything that you would change in the past like 12 months, 14 months, like knowing what you know now? Is there any approaches to your marketing that you would have done differently? Like any learnings, not just for like in a COVID environment, but any learnings that you look to bring forward today on with the theme of marketing?
Honestly,
you can say no too. That's okay.
I really wouldn't. And you know why? I made mistakes along the way, and nothing over the past year was according to a plan, and it was like that for everyone. And it's human to make mistakes. I think that, in the context of what was going on, I did my best for my family and for my team here at Frog and Toad. And I wouldn't do anything differently. I think, if I were to bake it down, it'd be, some, very, basic like operational stuff that I maybe would have tweaked. But in terms of like commanding our message and what we put out, public facing, I'm good with it. I think that, it's possible, because it's inevitable, that, maybe I had oversights where I didn't give, due credit for stuff, or did thank the people that helped along the way. But I think that's part and parcel to the human experience, and you learn from it and you grow. It's like getting awarded an Oscar and you give your speech, and like that actress, I'm in this metaphor, I'm the actress, that actress is speeding through and being like, I want to thank, and they got only so much time to get all those thank yous in. And you never touch everybody, but everyone understands, because really we're just all out there doing our best in that brief amount of time before the curtain credits come on and the commercial cue comes up. So yeah, I'm good with it. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's one thing that we've learned to over the past 12 months ourselves, is like, just do it. Like, it doesn't need to be perfect. Like I'm sensing that it's like, it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be like this perfectly orchestrated, like marketing strategy. Like if you like it, if you like the idea, like just do it. Like put yourself out there, like be authentic. Like, it's something that we've been forced to lean into.
Yeah. And like just that theme of being super genuine. And I just want to like take what we talked about there, and we talked a lot about the past and like this past year and stuff. And like, I just want to get your outlook on like, people are getting vaccinated. Things are starting to open back up. Like, are you psyched to open back up the shops and like start talking to people again? And
it's like, I mean, that is a crazy question, John.
Right.
I think that if I could introduce another metaphor, and thank you for your patience with my metaphors, guys. It's a little bit like myself and my team here are like cave mice. We're like albino, blind, afraid of the light. We've been working in seclusion for over a year. And the idea of opening up that cave door and letting, spelunkers come in with flashlights is a little bit disconcerting. But I know that once, we're fully operational again, it's going to feel great to be having that human contact. It's just, I think we're going to be missing all of the social cues. I think Frog and Toad is not well socialized at this point. So,
I mean, nobody is at this point. We just started opening back up the office, and it's crazy because like I've seen people I haven't seen in a year now.
Yeah.
This is nuts.
I mean, it's all good. Somebody, I'm fully vaccinated now, and I've already received a couple of like hugs. And it's, they've been like the first hugs that weren't my family in the past like year or so. And I've been like, what is this physical sensation I'm experiencing? And why does my heart have some joy in it? I don't understand what to do with these emotions.
Am I doing this right?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think that, I think, picking up on that same note, I think that we all just, need to have like some elevated compassion and understanding for all of our neighbors as we do enter into this reemergence, because it's not as easy for some folks as it is for others. I think a lot of folks have very real social anxieties that have been exposed over the course of the past year. And they might be, they might be working in a theater or a grocery store or what have you. But for me anyway, I think that, I think that this pandemic has probably exposed a lot, and it's informed me a lot about what challenges are out there, like on an individual level and on a societal level that I may not have been aware of prior. And so I just think that, I think that being empathetic towards our fellow man at this time is more important than ever.
Mm-hmm. It's so crazy because we had the thought of the new normal being drilled in our head everywhere you looked, and now this is another new normal. It's like the old normal is the new normal now. So,
that's going to be different in a week,
right? It's going to take time, but
yeah. No, I went to the gym yesterday and I walked in and no one was wearing a mask, and it was so weird to feel that. It seems like something was wrong, right? So it's like, this doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But anyways, so last question, Asher, is for other retail shops that are listening, if there's one thing that you've learned over the past 20 years in terms of marketing, if you were to distill it down, like, what advice would you give other retail shops, whether it's e-commerce or in person, or you can split them? But is there any like major learning suggestions, resources, like anything that you would give to new new entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, geez, so much. I think that in my first years of business, I learned the importance of having contacts that would help me. So like I knew I needed to have a plumber that I could turn to, an electrician, and all of those things, because I can't do that. And then I learned that extends beyond the trade skills into every other aspect of your business life. So my advice would be to don't be too proud to solicit help, advice, influence. Look at the resources that are there in your neighborhood, in your community. Our partnership with GrowthLab, as an example, is excellent because here we were trying to basically start a brand new business where there wasn't one, and we didn't know how to do it. But what you do in that situation is you find somebody that does. And that is how you be successful. You pepper everything with who you are at your core, the heart that you bring to the job when you wake up in the morning. But in terms of guidance and how to navigate, it's so critical that you get influence and ideas from outside parties. It's far too easy in any business, one like mine or other, to operate in a silo where you're just on your daily grind and you're not thinking outside of that. And I think above all other advice that I could give, it would be to break out of that silo and look around and lean on people who can help and advise.
I love that. It's about the people around you. It doesn't matter if you are if you're a machine shop, like you still need people, right? So you can't do things alone. There's no such thing as a one-man band. So I love that. In closing, Asher, any last minute, any plugs, how can people find you? How can people find Frog and Toad?
Yeah, so we are hopefully going to be open for in-person shopping in a matter of weeks. We're doing some renovations right now. So at that time, you'll be able to find us at 795 Hope Street. We have a website that is frogandtoadstore.com. where you can find us then and before. And then I think that, for plugs and not to be pithy, but over the course of the past year, I mentioned all of those community partnerships that we tried to lean on to get through. And I learned a lot about what's going on in the nonprofit community here in Rhode Island that I didn't know before. So I'd want to use this time to plug the great work that's being done by so many organizations like the Rhode Island Foundation, Progresso Latino, Thunder Mist Health Centers, Meals on Wheels, the House of Hope, the Nonviolence Institute, EcoRI News. There are just so many incredible people that are working to do good here that don't get acknowledged. And it has been like such a gift to be able to be on the street, to be on the ground, seeing what these folks do. It's been so inspiring. So if I'm giving anybody a shout out, it's probably all the good-hearted folks that are working in those nonprofits.
I love that. Awesome. Cool. Well, Asher, can't thank you enough. Always fun. Appreciate you coming on today. I recommend everyone check out Frog and Toad. And thank you.
Thank you so much. I loved this conversation. I'm welcome. I mean, I'm available to come back at any time. Thank you so much for having me.
Cool. Let's do it. Part 2 coming soon.
All right, cool. Thank